Well, the reason I brought you all the way out here, two reasons. Number one is I can do the demonstration safely with no one behind me out here. And secondly, from right here, we can see the battlefield. Now, a lot of people don't know that there was a battle here at Appomattox, but the Confederates did not come here to surrender. When General Lee's army arrived here, they were simply intending to pass through, but they got trapped, and the surrender ends up happening here. But there was fighting all the way up until the last minute. And if you look out in these open fields behind me, this was the site of the Battle of Appomattox Court House, the last battle fought between these two armies here. Now, the Confederates arrived here on the evening of April 8th, 1865, and they set up their camp on the other side of the village. And when they look out to the west, on that ridge in the far distance where you see the tree line, they see Union cavalry. The Confederates had fully intended to march along this highway that runs to your left on into the distance. They intended to march down that road the next day and continue moving their army. They were trying to get all the way down into North Carolina. That's their objective. But when they look out in the evening, they see Union cavalry out there blocking the road. Lee and his officers meet that night, and they decide they're going to attack. So early on the morning of April 9th, you would have seen about 9,000 Confederate soldiers come through the village and line up in these fields behind me. And early that morning, the Confederates attack up that hill and engage the Union cavalry. Cavalry is dismounted. They're fighting on foot. And there's only about 1,000. So about 9,000 Confederates and about 1,000 Union troopers. They slowly start to push the Union cavalry back. It takes them a little while, but the fighting is going to move back in that direction. If any of you came here from Highway 460 or past the town of Appomattox, the modern town, you drove through the battlefield. The battlefield stretches all the way back 2 miles to where 460 is today. Now at that point, Union reinforcements arrive and they start to push the Confederates back. And the fighting is going to come back this way, and the Confederates will retreat into the village and out the other side. By about 10 o'clock in the morning, Lee realizes his army can't break through. And he sends out flags of truce to stop the fighting. The Union troops are going to stop on top of that ridge. You would have seen a solid line of blue out there. Thousands of Union soldiers. Both sides came here intending to fight. And they did fight right up until the last minute. There were about 700 killed or wounded in the last battle. Now, the two sides are using different types of weapons by this point in the war. And that's what I want to talk about next. The one I have right here is a Springfield Rifle. And I'll bring it around so you can all get a closer look at it. This is the standard weapon used by the Union Army in the Civil War. It's made in Springfield, Massachusetts. Weighs about 8.5 pounds. Now the Confederates carry something very similar to this. Well, they actually use captured Springfields, but the Confederates will build their own versions of this rifle, and they will import rifles from England and other countries. But both sides are using the same type of weapon. They all work the same way, and they all have the same basic parts. If you look right here, this area is called the lock. Down here is the stock, and the long part is the barrel. And if you look more closely here at the lock, this piece right here is called the hammer. And you cock it to load it and fire it. And I know it's hard to see, but this little piece in front of the hammer is called the cone. And the cone has a little hole that leads to the inside of the barrel. And that's how we're going to fire the rifle. I'll show you here in just a second. These rifles are what we call muzzle loaders. They load from the muzzle, from the front. And you have to have a ramrod to load them. A cartridge for a soldier is a paper tube wrapped up with gunpowder on the inside. So we're using a paper cartridge with gunpowder. Now, if this was a real cartridge, there'd be a bullet on the inside. But today, I'm just going to fire blank. But you also need, in this pouch, your percussion caps. Now, the cap is a small piece of copper, and on the inside is a chemical, mercury fulminate, and that's an explosive. The cap sits on the cone. When I load this, you'll see that. Pass that around. So a soldier needs his cartridges, his caps, and once in a while when you get into battle you might need this. What is this?
Bayonet.
The bayonet. This is used for hand-to-hand combat. It fits over the end of the muzzle, but I can still load and fire. It doesn't block it. And if you get close enough in battle, you'll use the bayonet. Well, let me go through the steps to load and fire the rifle. When the recruits joined the Army, they had to learn these basic steps, and they drilled them until they got them down automatically. But the officer is going to give a series of commands, and you've got to do each step to load this weapon. I'll start at the position of attention. The first command is load. Bring it out in front of me. The next command is handle cartridge. Pull out a cartridge. The next command is tear cartridge.
Not swallow the powder.
And, yeah, don't swallow it. Yeah. The next command is charge with cartridge. Pour the gunpowder down the barrel and push it in. The next command is withdraw rammer. Next command, ram down, charge. Next command, return rammer. Each individual step. Now at this point I bring the weapon up and I wait for the next command, which is prime. I'm going to put it on half cock, take out a cap, and the cap sits on the cone right there. Now when I go to full cock and pull the trigger, the hammer is going to swing forward and hit that cap and cause the explosion. The next three commands are ready, aim, and fire. I'll do those for you. We'll make some noise. It won't be terribly loud, but if you don't like noises, you can cover your ears. Ready, aim, fire. There you go. And I'll do it the second time and show you how they actually fought in battle, because you're not going to go through every individual step. So this time I'll do it at combat speed. One command, it's just load. And I'm going to go through all the steps. Wait for the next command, which is just going to be ready, aim, and fire. So, ready, aim, fire. Now that was faster, but still fairly slow, right? You got to go through all these steps. But throughout the war, this was the common weapon used by both sides for this style of weapon. It's a muzzle loader. You load it from the front, and you've got to reload after every shot. And the other thing about it is you have to stand up to load this weapon because you've got to pull this ramrod out and ram it down. You can try to kneel down. You can do it laying down, but it's not very easy. So the soldiers fought standing up. And they fought in lines, a line of men standing shoulder to shoulder. And what you have is one side will load and fire, and the other side will load and fire. And battles had that rhythm going back and forth. Now, a lot of people want to know, how far does it shoot? From where you're standing right here, if you look out to that far tree line in the distance, that tree line is 800 yards from where you're standing. This rifle has an accurate range of 1,000 yards. So In theory, if someone is standing out there, you could hit them with this, if you're a good shot. Most battles are fought closer than that. Most battles were fought with the men maybe 100 or 200 yards apart. Fairly close. If you think about 100 yards is the length of a football field.